So you've mentioned the dark goddess a few times, and I know you have a wonderful book, Encountering the Dark Goddess. How did that book come about?
I've always sort of had I don't know if it was teenage rebellion or angst or a hangover from my gothy days back in the 80s, 90s, but I've always had sort of a drawing to darker deities, and it could also stem to how I sort of approach my spiritual path as in sort of like a journey to understand me, and that sort of that balance between light and dark. But a number of probably about 10, 15 years before I actually wrote the book, I was starting to sort of present and also run, workshops on tapping into darker aspects of deity. And the book sort of evolved out of those workshops, really, because I suppose it comes down to our mindset as to what we term as dark. And that whole concept of sort of, and we see a lot today, there's this there's duality, it's just one or the other. And that was also big in the late 90s, early 2000s as well. And I suppose part of this was saying, well, these deities, I see them as deities just because they make us uncomfortable, or they challenge us, or they live in the around below us, or they created everything out of nothing, or they destroy everything in order for creation to reoccur. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are nasty or evil. It's sort of like it's a natural process of the whole realm that we are part of, birth, life, death, rebirth. And I guess from there, I also went through a life-changing event in my own life through a very serious health issue. And it was sort of almost like I talked a lot about, in particular, say, Inanna's journey or descent into the underworld to meet her Ishkagul. But it was supposed through my own health crisis, actually being Inanna and sitting in Ishkagul's presence, that sort of brought a lot of sort of what I was talking about back home to me as to how that can actually change, and when we rise again, when we ascend like Inanna does, how powerful that can be, and also how life-changing. So, and also part of me was, we pigeonhole deities, or we tend to pigeonhole deities, and we see them today as like dark goddesses can only be like dark, nasty, woo-woo, spooky, Halloween sort of deities. And some of the ones I have in my book, like Morgan Le Fay, people go, why have you got her? And it's just like, look at her story. She had everything. She could have had Tintagel Castle, she could have had Avalon, which she could have been the high priestess. Yet she gave all that away to be what? A handmaiden to Guinevere, who treated her like nothing. And it's just like, to me, that's a lesson of when we give away our power. And it doesn't matter if we're male or female or in between or none. It's these myths and stories have sort of big lessons for us where we can think about.
As pagans, as witches, we understand the concept of dark goddess, but for someone outside, it does have that scary connotation to it, doesn't it?
Yes, and I suppose it's also been very conveniently linked in, say, our shadow self, and a lot of the deities are associated with the underworld. I think when I talk about the deities, I've actually sort of broken them down to at least 9 categories that I've found by looking at their myths. And there's actually, there's the underworld, and there's the funeral ones and the ones of cemeteries, but there's also the creatrixes as well, like the King Kali's a creatrix, and Tiamat's also a creative goddess. From her own body, she created the heavens and earth. And you have the shapeshifters and the initiators, like Scathach and also Credwin. On the Morrigan also, Magru is also a shapeshifter if you look at her stories. And just because, and I said, something challenges us, to me, at least this is my way of thinking, I stop and think and then just say, oh, where is it taking me? And if we sort of go into the underworld, that's almost like a resting place. And I suppose in our modern age where we have to be on the go all the time, and it can be uncomfortable if we are forced to go within and to rest and to think and to be still. And I think that's one of the greatest lessons, especially in one of the goddesses, Nephthys, who's Isis's other half. To me, though she did actually have at one stage a huge following, just as much as Isis did, but she was gradually forgotten. But to me, she is the silent one. She takes us into that silence and basically says, be comfortable in your own skin. And that can be very uncomfortable, especially in our day and age where our devices and we have to be on call, but just to sit there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes alone with our thoughts, that is scary, very scary.
Oh, I'm rubbish at that. I am sitting there doing nothing. No, I'm not good at that at all.
It's quite funny because a number of years ago I used to do a meditation circle, and I was given a copy of single Rinpoche sort of Rest in Natural Great Peace. It's just like a short recording of some Buddhist poem that he's reciting, and he's talking about sitting, letting the mind come still like a glass of muddy water. It went for 3 minutes, and the number of people who got very agitated, how long is this going to go on for, Francis? Because I have to get home. I'm going, 3 minutes. By the time you get out the door to your car, it will be over. But it was just that whole idea of sitting still with our thoughts. And it's just like I think we, especially in our modern age, we need to let that glass of muddy water sort of settle. And a lot of it
I need that lesson. I'm going to take that one on board.
I'll send you the recording. It's actually really interesting. And it's just like, it's like coming back to our body, coming back to our heart, coming back to that place of peace and stillness within. And I think all these dark goddesses actually sort of encourage us to do that, because instead of our gaze being external, our gaze is coming internal, looking at us. And again, we don't like looking at ourselves. We like to project and blame somebody else. But when we realize that we're it's all our fault. It's like, it's okay. Next question.